Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Forte Catholic. My name is Taylor Schroll, your host for today, and our priest friend is back. Father Anthony Sciarappa returns for the first time this Lent for our Holy Week episode, wherein we do not talk about Holy Week at all. But I have been saving questions for him, all of my priest-specific questions. We talk about Mass versus communion services. We talk about convalidations. We talk about what happens if the one priest can't finish a Mass. I've been thinking about these things quite a bit. I hope that you are as nerdy of a Catholic as I am and enjoy today's conversation. If you do, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you are watching or listening, and enjoy your Holy Week. This won't help you at all with it, but I hope that you learn some things along the way and have a great time before, some sad things happen later this week, and then some really happy things happen about 3 days later. Enjoy! Hello there, and welcome to Forte Catholic. I'm Taylor Schroll, and that's the Priesty Boy. He's back.
Hi, friends. Hi, Taylor.
How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Where you been?
Oh, doing priest stuff.
That's what I heard. I know the excuse for month one why you missed. What was going on in month two?
You didn't, wait, did you? I just waited for you to, invite me on to the next show, and you just never did, I thought.
Oh, no, buddy. You see all those missed phone calls on your phone?
What?
I have
Ridiculous.
called you multiple times because it had been 2 months, so I wasn't just going to text you and be like, Tuesday, ? We hadn't spoken. I didn't know if you were busy or stressed or angry. I didn't know what was going on, so I kept trying to call to get a barometer of how you were. You finally answered last week, and you were at the gym, and you were like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, then where have you been?
Well, that seems to be a horrible misunderstanding.
Month one, there was just a lot of people dying, and you're a priest, so you have to do their funerals. Perfectly fine. You were like, look, I need a month off. You haven't had a month off in forever. And then and then you came back to that Clerically Speaking podcast. Y'all do like an episode every 6 months. And then I did feel okay to text you, be like, what the hell? I'm glad you're doing better than I have assumed that you have been for the last month.
Been fine. A little busy. It's been okay.
Yeah. So I have saved priestly questions for you. This is going to be one of those nerdy Catholic episodes. Usually we're like, let's talk about silly stuff and, bring people in. I promise you this is for the people who like weird Catholic stuff. Because I have questions about Mass. I have questions about communion services. I have questions about convalidations. All these are very, very popular words, or very unpopular words, very complicated words that I have questions about. And one of the questions that we're going to kind of build to is going to seem very silly, but I think I had a prophetic message in a Mass that I was in, and I have a question that you're not going to like, and you're not going to like that I'm right about it, but I think I am.
Okay.
Okay. So that's where we're building to, but we'll start with a little bit of an easy one that I may have asked you something like this before. But I thought about this because I'm constantly thinking about you in a positive light, except for the last month where I thought you were dying and you couldn't answer your phone. But the month before, I've told you about this man before. I don't think we've ever talked about this man on the show before. But it'll ring a bell for you, and I'll kind of bring everybody else up to speed. So there's this Catholic camp here in my diocese, and out at this camp there's this retired priest that almost any time I see him, I end up texting or calling you some story about him, because what I think he is. How old are you?
I'm 35.
You're 35. He is you are him. He is you in about 40 years. So whenever he retired, which is 10 years ago, so now he's 85, and I know that math is wrong, but I've known him for about 10. And when he retired at 75, as most priests do, he became the priest in residence at this Catholic camp. So I've seen him for years. I knew him at 75. Now I know him at 85. And there's been multiple times, and especially it's been very encouraging to me. And I've tried to share that encouragement with you. And I don't know if it's set in, but every Because you've been very honest here on the show. You've been very honest on Clerically Speaking that like not every single day as a priest is easy and loving. And
Yes.
I said yes to God once, and that means my life has been beautiful for the last 10 years or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you've been very open and honest about it. But like every time I see this, man, it gives me hope that you're going to still be a priest at the year of 80, like when you're 80 years old, because he's super sweet. He's so great with these kids. He still loves the Lord. He is and like the sacrifices that he makes as a priest are incredible because like his health is starting to, he's 85 years old. His health is starting to fail. And yet he still makes these sacrifices to be there. I've been told multiple times, Father might not be able to make it for Mass. We might have to do a communion service. Father won't be able to make it for adoration. So Deacon's going to do adoration. And actually Deacon can't make it. So we're actually giving you the power as the retreat leader to do adoration.
Sure.
Just without the benediction, all that stuff. So incredible man. Well, the last time I went to Mass with him was about 2 months ago, right around the time that we last spoke. And there was another priest who's probably in his 60s, and he was the main celebrant, the main priest for the weekend. And you, in now 50 years, is in a wheelchair and con-celebrating the Mass. So explain con-celebrating. Why would you even do that? You have one magician. You don't need extra spells. Why would you con-celebrate something?
You're right. You don't need extra spells. So back in the day, con-celebration wasn't so much a thing. So each priest, if they wanted to say a Mass, they would say Mass on their own. That's why when you go in older churches, all those side altars are there because multiple priests will be saying Masses at the same time. But with liturgical reforms, now there's this thing called con-celebration. The idea is basically that there's really only one priest. That's Jesus Christ. And we all share in his one priesthood. So it's kind of a way of displaying that. There's one principal celebrant, and the other priests con-celebrate. So celebrate with him. Because it's, once again, we're all sharing the same one priesthood. Really, it's Jesus Christ who's doing all the important things. So if there's one priest there, if there's 50 priests there, it's still just basically Jesus doing the thing. So it's a way of celebrating. So it counts as a Mass. If I can celebrate, I still have a Mass intention. It would fulfill obligations or that kind of thing as well. It's just kind of a way of sharing the priesthood of Jesus Christ, and we don't need as many altars. So there you go. Con-celebration.
My brain immediately went to, let's say you're exactly who you are, but you're 100 years ago. So you're back in the time where there's these side altars and everything.
Yeah.
I love the idea that either, whoever the leader, you're still the associate pastor wherever you are, right? So it's either the pastor or a bishop or whoever's in charge of you. This man saying Mass on the main altar, I could just see you being like, your Mass isn't good enough. I'm going to go do mine over here on the right small chapel. And it's just very funny to me that you could, the bishop's celebrating Mass, pastor celebrating Mass. Nah, I'll do it myself over here.
Exactly.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So as a priest in the older rite, you could participate. Like you could act, even though you're a priest, you could act as a deacon in the priest Mass or act as a subdeacon, but you wouldn't be the priest for the Mass. You wouldn't have celebrated Mass that day. So that's why.
Oh.
You would participate in Mass, but you wouldn't have celebrated.
So it was useless.
Which part was useless?
Demoting yourself from priest to deacon or subdeacon, because then it didn't count for anything.
Useless for me in a certain sense.
Yeah.
But helpful to the priest who's doing the big fancy Mass.
Yeah, he could figure it out.
he probably could. He probably could have figured it out by himself.
Okay, so here's where one of my questions arise. This is the situation that I am in. The young priest, the young man in his 60s, was celebrating Mass. The other priest was con-celebrating, and he's in a wheelchair. So he wasn't typically when it's con-celebration, you're young and virile. I think that's an okay word to use. I may not know what it means, but
sure,
you're young and spry. Maybe that would say more. So you're typically standing behind the altar next to the primary celebrant, whether that's your pastor for a big Mass at your church or like the bishop if he comes to your parish for confirmation or whatever. You're typically standing like on his right or his left, that sort of thing. Well, this priest, because he's in a wheelchair, was in his wheelchair and was sitting like I was quote unquote sitting in the front row because I was doing slides for the music lyrics, and then I was standing next to the musician to kind of help him out. And then the bishop was essentially sitting right, or not the bishop, the older priest was sitting very close to us. And it got me thinking. First, does positioning matter? Because essentially he's kind of sitting with the crowd, but he's con-celebrating. And like, I didn't know he was con-celebrating until the Eucharistic prayer started and he's reaching out his hand over, he's doing all the motions, right? So I just thought,
Right.
look, he's 85 years old. He's taking a Sunday off. Relax, But it got me thinking, in this situation, 65-year-old priest has a heart attack. And it maybe the answer is different at different stages of the Mass. But let's say he has a heart attack during the gospel. The other situation that I'll also prepare you for is he has a heart attack in the middle of the Eucharistic prayer. Mm-hmm. Can that Mass continue? Obviously, there's going to be, they're going to call the ambulance. The ambulance will come in. Like, we're not just going to leave him laying there, right?
It's going to be a whole thing.
right. But, I'm thinking about this, but, people drove hours to come to this Mass because they're coming to come pick their kids up from this confirmation retreat. So, priest is there. We're out in the country. It's going to take 15 minutes for the ambulance to get there. Ambulance takes him. Obviously, traumatic event. But it's still Sunday. We still all have to go to Mass. I'm sure the obligation could be lifted in this scenario. I'm sure somebody can figure it out. But dramatic scenario aside, something happens where the primary celebrant gets sick or dies or has to be taken away in the hospital or something like that. That priest leaves at the exact moment. Can the other priest who is celebrating pick up right where he left off?
So I don't know if there's actual rules or prescriptions about that, but that's exactly what I think would happen. Okay. That the priest would just jump in. In the Eucharistic prayer, there's already you kind of see this a little bit in like a regular concelebration. There's certain parts where a concelebrant will take over and say the words for a certain part of the prayer. Right. That's an option they can already do. So it's not too much of a stretch to say, hey, that priest is indisposed for whatever reason. The other priest can jump in and continue the Mass. I'm sure that's fine. It's actually probably what would be recommended for you to do. Yeah.
Okay, so same scenario, but there was not a priest celebrating. So you're in your room playing Destiny 2 because you don't have the 11 o'clock Mass because you celebrated the 9 o'clock Mass, and your pastor or whoever is saying the Mass at the church, literally right next to you, you could walk there and be there in a minute and a half. He gets sick. And has to, same thing. Hospital, not the hospital comes. The hospital arrives. Incredible. No, the ambulance arrives, and you weren't celebrating, but you are still a priest, and he dies 8 words into the Eucharistic prayer. Do you have to start over? Do you send people away, or once again, can you just pick up where he left off?
That's interesting. I would assume that I could pick up where he left off. And I think that would be preferable, especially if it took me we're talking 10, 15 minutes for me to get over there. Throw on my vestments and jump in. I would probably do that. I would probably start at the beginning of the Eucharistic prayer. If it's only a few words in, I think it might get a little tricky if he is already confected partially the Eucharist. So if he's consecrated the hosts but not the chalice, I think I would have to pick up where he left off. I don't know. That's a weird sort of scenario to happen. If that thing kind of happens, Jesus, can you please just keep this priest alive for 2 more minutes? Is that hard to
It's really funny because what I thought you were going to say, Jesus, can you just not have our bishop find out about this so we don't have to answer this question?
also both those things. Yeah, so this is me kind of spitballing here, so this might not be official church teaching, but I would say, say he's consecrated the hosts, I would pick off where he left off. If he had just begun the Eucharistic prayer, is a few sentences in or whatever, maybe even already did the epiclesis, the kind of calling down the Holy Spirit, I would still start from the beginning just so it's clear about what's going on, what's not going on. I'm afraid of what question you're eventually going to ask is.
Oh, yeah, we're getting there.
I have an idea.
You're not going to die. I promise you're not going to die.
No.
You have to live to at least 85 and celebrate in a wheelchair at a random Catholic camp. We have to get there at least. So, okay, here's my question, and I'm no setup whatsoever. Part of that last story was I was just curious, right? But you also defined some terms and helped us to get to this next question.
Yeah.
This comes from my experience. Both of these come from experience. I was wondering, what if this priest dies and this priest has to do it, right? But I was also at Ash Wednesday communion service. I did not go to Mass because at our parish, and I think it's actually becoming quite popular, that there's 2 Masses a day and 8 communion services. One, to help two reasons: to help the priests, right? Because that'd be a lot of masses in one day. But then also to help people, like people that want to come, even though it's not a whole day of obligation. It's still the second or third most popular day on the church calendar. People want to come, and they have work. Like, so we essentially have, anytime you want to come, you could come. There's 2 a.m, there's 2 at your lunch break, there's 2 right after work, there's 2 very late if you work late. Like, there's just a ton of services. So this is where this question is coming from. So I went to a communion service and it's fine and it's approved. And then I've gone to every Sunday Lenten Mass and I'm like, why can't Sunday Mass just be a communion service? Meaning, you as the priest, at whatever you or your pastor, so let's just use your parish, right? You and the pastor, one of you is going to say Saturday night Mass. Why can't you or him at the first Mass consecrate you have 2,500 people coming to your Sunday Masses. Consecrate 2,500 hosts, and then either you or the deacons can do a communion service. It's I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna shut up and ask why can't Sunday Mass just be a communion service?
Because Sunday Mass and communion services are different. That's the first and foremost thing. Sometimes people forget about this, but your Sunday obligation is to attend Mass. Your Sunday obligation is not to receive communion. Because let's say that you're in a state of mortal sin, or you just haven't gone to confession in a long time. You don't have to receive communion. In certain cases you shouldn't, but you're still obligated to go to Mass. So first and foremost, a communion service is not Mass. But let's take a step back to the example we gave for Ash Wednesday, because this is important. For Ash Wednesday, I think it's more common to you'll have the whole Mass and distribution of ashes, or you'll have just a liturgy of the word and distribution of ashes. I am fairly certain that you should not have a bunch of communion services with distribution of ashes, because communion services are envisioned as this kind of emergency measure where you don't have a priest. So it's envisioned for, like, at a parish, it's a Sunday and all of your priests are sick. Or you're out in, like, the Congo and a priest doesn't visit you that month or whatever. Like, that's when you do communion services. They should not be done even during the week. Let's say, like, a regular weekday Mass, you don't have a priest for that weekday. You shouldn't probably do a communion service for that. It's actually not recommended. And even within the communion service, the idea of a lot of the prayers are praying for a priest. It's envisioned that you don't have a priest, right? So the idea is not to, because if you do communion services and you do them a lot, that begins to make people think, why can't we just receive communion? And it begins to lessen in people's minds the importance of the Mass. So the idea for a communion service is that you don't have a priest. So for something like Ash Wednesday, you would have, 2-3 Masses, however many you can have with the amount of priests you have, and then you just have distribution of ashes. For Sunday, the idea is that you would have, the priest would say Mass. If people literally can't make it to any of those Masses because of serious reasons, of course, families sick, you have to take care of them, or you're sick or in the hospital, or maybe perhaps you're in a very tight economic situation and you have to go to work or else your family's going to starve. These are very realistic things that happen across America. Then you're not obligated to go to Mass. It's sad. It's a bummer. We want to go to Mass, but it would not be a sin in that case. But you wouldn't have communion service for the sake of convenience. It's for the sake of emergency. Does that make sense? That's why you wouldn't do it.
It does. And both scenarios. So one is a more maybe me scenario. The thing that you're not going to like is the second part. And I'll get there in a second. The first part is me being selfish. One, selfish for myself. I've been saying the word selfish as shellfish all Lent, and nice. I think it's just because we have fish on the brain. I've been doing it accidentally multiple times. I am selfish, but I also think, and I've talked to you about this, I've talked to other priests, and I still think that most of them are lying to me, because I guess I should believe in the power of the sacrament of your priesthood, just like my marriage is way better than it should be because of the grace of the sacrament. I'm not very good at it, but somehow we're actually pretty good at it, me as a congregant, I'm only going to mass. I'm typically on average now going twice a week. I go Sunday, and then my wife and I have our new standing date on Thursdays where we go to mass and then we go out to lunch. Like that's kind of standard for me, right? And even going to just 2 a week, I get tired of the Eucharistic prayer. I get tired of that part because one of the things we love about Catholicism is the structure of the Mass. And I love the structure of the Mass, but in the first half, everything changes within the structure. It's different prayers. It is new readings. It is a new psalm. It is a new homily. It is all new. And then the second half, we mail it in, and it's the same stuff every single time. And it's so hard for me to pay attention because I kind of don't want to pay attention because I literally have it memorized. I'm saying every word with you. I'm celebrating Mass with you from the ninth pew because I know all the words and I'm tired of it. And I have asked priests, how do you not get tired of this? And they're like, oh, it's the Lord. I don't believe you. I don't believe you that it is not boring and repetitive because I'm only going twice a week. You're going 13 times a week. I don't understand how this is good for the congregation and good for our priests to do that specific part of Mass. I don't mean the whole Mass is rote. I don't mean the whole Mass is repetitive, but specifically the Eucharistic prayer. You have 3 options. Everybody has their opinions about which one's the best. There's still only 3, and we all have them memorized. I'm tired of it. Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me, and it didn't take 15 minutes of words.
All great points. Let's say So it's interesting.
Here's some bread. Go love each other.
It was actually probably longer because he had to do all that other Passover stuff as well, and that's all very complicated. But anywho, so I would say, in being very honest, I usually don't get bored of the Eucharistic prayer. It's not like boredom that I feel, but it can be like there have definitely been times where I can grow tired of Mass. Like, on my third Mass of the weekend, I know what my homily is going to be. I know what the readings are. That can be a bit of a slog. So in that sense, it's more of like just there's a monotony. There's a kind of boredom there, sure. But in general, I do have to watch out because for me, it's not like I get bored during the Eucharistic prayer, but it's so memorized that it's very hard for me to focus on it. Yeah. So my mind's wandering. It's kind of a typical thing. If I don't really take a lot of time to prepare for Mass, and a lot of times, sometimes you can't. Like during daily Mass, it's very hard for me to focus on celebrating the Mass because I'm thinking about like the 1,000 different things that I have to do that day. So I'm thinking about the meetings I have and will I have time for breakfast? So yeah, that's definitely a struggle. Real life. Not all the time, but pretty common. There are actually like 7 to 8 options for Eucharistic prayer. There are 3 main ones and the 4th other one, then a bunch of other goofy ones I've never used and probably wouldn't be able to say. So for like a weekend, I do try to mix it up for myself. I used to do Eucharistic prayer 1, that's the long one all the time. But honestly, I was like, you know what? I cannot focus on this long prayer for my 3rd Mass. We're going to use number 3.
Linus,
it's a little bit
Cletus, Pigpen. Oh, crap. That's the wrong one.
Exactly. my brother will do a thing where he just throws in random names of like the Beatles into the
Lenin, Stalin.
Wait. Just like dictators. So I will mix it up just for my sake, like because I have only so much focus. So that's a real thing. But to be honest, I'm
glad to hear that you do that because it's like I just try to put myself in the priest's shoes. It's like I would have to do something like that so that I wasn't like going crazy. And like it's little stuff like this that I'm like I chose the right vocation because that's part of it that I just couldn't do because I'm done after 1. So I go to the 2nd Mass in the week and I'm like, ugh, same words again.
Yeah, and mass is tiring. Like, if anyone thinks like, oh, being a priest is so easy, go to 2 masses in a row. Just go to 2 masses in a row and tell me how you feel when you're done.
And
it's
wear
exhausting.
a big, heavy dress in the summer.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother level when you have AC. Oh my gosh.
How is Father Anthony still healthy? I've seen him eat. Oh, the albs or whatever they're called.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I will say, like, that's when I think of things that are difficult in the priesthood. A lot of times, like saying mass a bunch of times isn't high on the list of things that are a pain in the butt for me. It's just really not. So maybe some priests are holier than me and never have like mass exhaustion. For me, it's like, yeah, it's a thing I need to watch out for. I try to mix up the Eucharistic prayer. The more time I take to prepare for mass, it makes it easier to actually say mass and make it a prayer. But yeah, so I can see why priests are saying it's not a big deal, because it's not like the biggest deal in my life, but it's there. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's my experience of saying a bunch of masses.
You're the only person I think has ever been honest. Maybe there's one person, like one other priest, that's so dang holy that he actually means it when he says that he's never.
I'm sure there's like 1 or 2.
Right. But like, I'm talking to like normal people, like you in 30 years, and they're saying like, no, it's fine. I'm like, no, it's not. You're a liar. Stop lying to me. Go to confession with me right now, and I'll do this, and it won't do anything, but you're a liar.
Let me just one more thing about that, because that is as a pressure on priests that like I don't know if they may be lying. Who knows? I don't know. But I do know the pressure of being too honest with people and being afraid to like scandalize them because they're not ready for real Christianity quite yet.
Right.
You don't want to like completely disillusion them. But like sometimes things are hard. Sometimes I'm not super excited to be a priest. Sometimes hearing confessions is annoying. Sometimes it's not just 3 hours of joy. Sometimes I'm really bored in there, or sometimes I get frustrated in there. You'll never know about it.
Very rarely getting good news in there.
Right. I'm not getting great news. I'm not hearing like great stuff all the time.
Somebody comes in, forgive me, Father, for I haven't sinned. It's been 3 weeks and I'm good. Hey, nice.
Yeah. So I think. Yeah, actually, that would actually make me more angry because, like, you're wasting my time. Get out of here! I can,
And just like Taylor said to the priest, you're lying.
Yes, exactly.
Here's an examination of conscience. Get back in line.
Yeah, you definitely sinned. If anything, confess wasting my time.
Right, exactly.
So, like, don't get me wrong. Like, people who are on the other side of confessional, they probably won't know that I'm cranky that day. They probably won't know it. But yeah, so any priest who says they never get frustrated with the holy things, either they're lying, just straight up lying because they're prideful, or they're just afraid to scandalize people, which is still lying, still not great.
That's probably what it is. And I get what you're saying. Like people who
they're new.
Yeah.
They're just new.
That's not the case. I've asked a lot of old priests. But
yeah,
I think it is that I could see the like not wanting to scandalize people being the reason for a lot of these guys, because like I know them, they're good dudes, and but like I get it, right? Like for a new somebody in RCIA, you're probably not gonna be like, yeah, I'm bored like 70% of the time in mass. You're not gonna say that there, but it's like somebody who works for you that's been a Catholic 15 years, me. It's like, dude, just be honest with me. You're ridiculous.
Sometimes you get bored.
I think about these things, right? Okay, here's the part you're not gonna like.
Okay.
And it goes to the point of, mass doesn't count, or community service doesn't count. We're going to mass. I think your distinction between going to mass is the obligation of not receiving communion actually probably is the thing that I wasn't thinking of. But the thing that I am thinking of is honestly you and a lot of the situations that I see whenever I travel, because this isn't as big of a deal as in Texas, but I think it's going to be soon. You are at a parish that used to be 7 parishes, or what? You used to be at a parish that used to be 7 parishes. Now you're at one that used to be 3 or 4, whatever, right? Parish closures are a thing. I've been traveling quite a bit to like Middle America and going to Montana. Like there's not a ton of Catholic parishes, and like going to Montana actually, like the bishop drove 5 hours to this event. It's Montana. It's half the state is his thing. Like he drove 5 hours. There's a priest that is in a situation like what you were in, except he was the only priest. He was the pastor of churches that were all like an hour and a half from each other.
Yeah.
So like on Sundays, he was driving hour and a half, and then an hour and a half back to where he lived. That's like 7.5 hours of driving a day. That is not sustainable, not healthy for the priest. So I think we're getting to a point, and I don't think all of America's like this. I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue, but I was primarily thinking about you and other people I care about that are in places that have had a lot of parish closures. Yeah. I think we're getting to the point where it is going to be impractical for a priest to celebrate Mass for all of the people every week. And I think we're going, like, I get what you're saying about the like liturgy of the word and then receiving or not receiving, and the importance of like, we need priests, but like, dude, just reality. Yeah. Yes, we need priests. The reality of the situation, if the trends keep going like they're going, we're not going to have enough priests for everybody to go to Mass at all the different times that we want. And like I joke all the time about the convenience thing. I can go to Mass whenever it's convenient for me on the weekend and I can make it work. We're moving to a point, and it's going to happen in the north and the middle of America before it happens here, but it's happening where it is not going to be healthy for our priests. It's already not healthy for those ones that are already dealing with this. Driving 7.5 hours in a day to celebrate Masses is utterly ridiculous. Like, it's just from a practical scenario, like we have to take care of our priests because we don't have enough priests, and if we keep doing that to him, he's going to quit or leave or do something stupid because he's stressed out. Like, it's just not sustainable from like a pastoral level. It's not sustainable from just a practical level, and I think we're moving to that point. So, and like you said, the point that you said about we're obligated to go to Mass, and I get that, but in my life and my generation, the importance of the Eucharist was put forth way more than the importance of the Mass. And that's just, it is what it is. It might not be right, but that's what we've all experienced. So I would be perfectly happy in that scenario. Now, I first half aside, where I think in a perfect world I'd be going to community service every Sunday. But that aside, this is me being genuine and trying to be a good person. I think it's not healthy for our priests to continue doing what we've been doing, and I think we should move to communion services for the sake of our priests. What say you?
Actually, yeah, the scenarios that you outlined, that's why we have communion services. First of all, a priest can only celebrate, in cases of emergency, 3 Masses of the same Mass. So like a Saturday and 2 Sundays, or I'm pretty sure that's how it works. During the weekdays, 2 Masses is max, right? Any more than that, you're breaking church law. And part of the reason why that law is there is so that priests do not get burned out, so that Mass doesn't become this rote thing, right? And so someone who's doing like, and I've done it. I've done 8 Masses in a weekend one time. A lot of times it was 5, 6. My first assignment. I got burned out on Mass within my first year of the priesthood. That is not good. And our diocese went through a lot of reforms to change that. So now I only do 3 a weekend. And and
you are healthy. Like a lot of this is my concern for the priest that I know the most, which is you. And it's like I have experienced you in that situation and experienced you not in that situation, and you're not a different person, but you're a way different person in a positive way now than you were then. Like, it's just not healthy for y'all, man. And like any mistake that you made, I'm going to put 80% on the situation and 20% on you, right?
Sure.
Like, come on. We're not, like, if you just punch somebody in the face over and over and over and over again, and the 9th time they punch back, you can't get mad at them. Like,
yeah, no, I totally agree. And I've also had like every once in a blue moon, there's a weekend where I've had 1 Mass, and it's amazing.
Right.
Like, I can pray that Mass. I can preach the heck out of that Mass. It is a joyful experience. I'll be honest, most weekends when I've got 3, it's mostly me doing work. And that's fine. I can do work, but it's tough. It can be tough at times, okay? So all that. So in the scenario where like there is a reason why we have communion services, and it's because of a lack of priests. And so, yeah, it may be coming to a town near you where there'll be a Sunday Mass, a Sunday where like a priest can't get to your church. That may be happening. That definitely happens out west. It happens in other parts of the world. It's a common thing. And that's why you would have communion services, and you would have lay people trained to do it. Particularly like lay catechists, so lay people who teach the faith and would do these sort of things. Very important. That's the reason.
I've done it. Because our pastor was very sickly for a time, and he taught me how to do it, and he showed me how to do it, and I was empowered to do it, and it was fine, man. Like it was a fine service. Like it was people prayed.
It can be prayerful. It can be good. You get the sacrament. It's still like having a communion service when you need a communion service. It's a good thing. That's why we have it. So I'm not saying communion services are bad, but I'm saying they're for a scenario where you can't get a priest. Okay. But the second part, so yes, I think that's totally fair. Because if you have a priest who is traveling 7 hours on a Sunday, that's not going to be sustainable. It's just not. And you're going to have even less priests and no Eucharist. Okay. So, yeah.
Right. Who wants to sign up for that? Who wants to sign up for that? Just practice.
No. Yeah, it's true. Like it's very hard.
It won't be 7.5 because if we get one more priest, it'll only be 4.5. Like, shut up! It's not that's not helping.
It's also a good reminder that, like, and this is something I've experienced more and more, that vocation really is a calling. It's in a certain sense, like if you're a priest and you don't have at least a few moments in your life where you're like, why the hell am I doing this? Right. It's because the reason why you're doing it is because God called you to it.
Yeah, every mom, dad, husband, and wife has felt
exactly.
the same thing.
Exactly. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of joy, a lot of love. I wouldn't trade this life for anything. But if you don't have like those moments, then like, what are you doing? You're not taking this seriously. Okay. But I think it's very interesting because I absolutely agree with you. Same thing, because we're the same generation. We're a few months apart in age. Absolutely. The emphasis was always on receiving the Eucharist and not the Mass. And I think that was an error in catechesis. It was an overcorrection. Like, people stop going to Mass. How do you bring them back into Mass?
Better than the summit and source, though, not the journey.
Right. You know, it's easy. You get to eat God. That's why it's important. Oh, that makes sense. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Not this like Trinitarian love, sacrifice, worship, exchange of divinity and humanity, heaven meeting earth, that sort of thing. That's all beautiful, but that takes longer to explain. You get to eat God, way easier to explain. But it's interesting because I think you're right that a lot of people are like, oh, if I get the Eucharist, why would I need all this extra stuff for Mass? Because Mass is long. If you don't know what's going on, it's boring. If you do know what's going on, it's occasionally boring.
It makes me so mad when people are like, well, if you're bored, you just don't understand what's going on. I was like, expletive, I have degrees and I've worked here my entire life. I understand what's going on. It's still boring sometimes. Relax.
Yeah, it is. It's still boring. And I think there's something to be said where like sometimes there'll be something like where I'll read a meditation or find a book where I'll open up Mass to me in a new way. That's the thing that can happen as well. Sure. So you can never like fully understand Mass, but you can get used to it. And that's just a normal human thing. Okay? That happens with any kind of loving relationship. Sometimes you get bored with your spouse, and that's a normal part of a relationship. Now there are things you can do to help that, you know. But yeah, of course, it's not always going to be butterflies and special feelings. It's just not. But I do think it's very interesting that a lot of people would agree with you that, like, why would we need all this extra stuff if I can still get the Eucharist? And I think that's because we've not done a good job of teaching how important the actual holy sacrifice of the Mass is. That's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Well, that's my hot take. I would like every Sunday to be communion services.
See, I'm going to have to disagree.
Here's the thing. But like, as a practice, it's like let the pastor celebrate Saturday night full Mass. If you want full Mass, you can go there. Let the associate pastor celebrate full Mass at 9:00 or whatever. And if you want Mass, you can go there. And then the rest of us that are normal people, we can go to the 40-minute communion service and be about our day. And you know what? You could preach longer if you wanted to. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't be griping about your 20-minute homily if Mass is only 45 minutes. You could be a preacher and actually care about your preaching and uplift people and not have to be like, do some rote crap that's the same every time as well. Like, we can actually make this something people.
Everyone can be happy. Yeah, everyone can be happy. Yeah, I don't.
That's all I want.
I'm not endorsing this. If there's anybody listening who's in, but
I'll get you eventually. Whenever you're driving 7 hours a day. All right, maybe there's something to it. So, okay, that's the end of that. I think that was a very good conversation. I think you opened my eyes to some things, and yet I still will never change my mind. So,
that's about right.
Okay. Next thing is not about the Mass at all. We are moving on from the Mass, and ironically enough, it took us almost exactly 40 minutes. Perfect length for a Mass. Very, very good. It's a liturgy of the Word, and we didn't even get Jesus at the end. Okay, so Question about convalidations, because I have a very silly scenario in my life. I have been my wife and I have been marriage sponsors, counselors, whatever, like the marriage prep people for 2 different couples now. And it was nice and easy. It was friends of ours. We knew them. And, we had been married like 10 years at one and like 12 years at the other one. And, these were babies and they were getting married. Like we felt like we were, we could flex our guns a little bit. It's like, yeah, we're not perfect, but we're pretty good at this marriage thing. Let us impart our wisdom to you. And then my pastor called the other day and he was like, hey, you want to do more work for free? And I'm like, I guess so. So he said, there's this couple. And I thought about you and Sam immediately because they're both coming from atheist backgrounds or at least agnostic backgrounds. And we think that you'll be able to answer the questions and help them. But also, it's not going to be a marriage. It's a convalidation. And I met them and I asked how long they'd been married. They've been married for 14 years. We've been married for 12. I am now my wife and I are marriage prep people for people who have been married longer than we have and have kids older than ours. They're way further along in marriage than us. So I have some questions about convalidations.
Yeah. So convalidations are a lot of times what we just call them validations. It's actually just getting married. So a lot of what happens in this scenario of convalidations is that there's somebody who has been married, who attempted marriage, but failed in this sense. If you are a Catholic and you got married to a non-Catholic or to another Catholic outside of the church or without permission from the church, you went through a marriage ceremony. It may have looked like you got married, but in the church's eyes, you're not married. You're just living with this person because you didn't go through the right channels and the church has some sort of say in this. So your marriage was never valid. A validation is technically just a marriage, but we call it a validation. So it's kind of like acknowledging you've been in some sort of committed relationship with this person. It's kind of just like a euphemism. In my opinion, this is Father Anthony's opinion. So when you get a marriage validated, you're just getting married. And in fact, I have to tell you that, at least for my paperwork in the Diocese of Pittsburgh, I have to inform you like, hey, just so you know, the church considers this you getting married for the first time because the other marriage didn't count. Now, that is one of the more difficult conversations I ever have with anybody.
Yeah, I don't like
because
that
no one
at
wants, right? Yeah, because nobody wants some 35-year-old priest with a man bun saying, by the way, your relationship that you've taken very seriously, it never counted.
Oh, to be fair, they don't want you telling them anything.
They don't want me telling them anything, and then I tell them that? Yeah. Right. So now I'm lucky enough where, lucky enough, if you will, my parents were married outside the church. My dad was Catholic. They eloped in Hawaii. So I'm lucky in the sense that I can be like, hey, I get it. Like my parents were in a very loving, committed relationship for a very long time. They still celebrate their anniversary, but they still went through this thing. And technically that is their marriage date. It doesn't invalidate everything you've been through, but just so you understand, this is how the church understands marriage. So it's not like your relationship means nothing. I'm not saying that at all, but this is what the church considers to be marriage. And what she considers to be marriage is actually true. So at least I can tell that story and be like, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying you weren't married in the eyes of the church, and we just have to acknowledge that. Can we acknowledge that the church has different rules about marriage? Usually they can say, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. So it is tricky that way.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Because what you just said is different than everything I've ever heard. Because what I've heard... Mm-hmm. And maybe this is people just flowering it up because they didn't want to have the awkward conversation or make it sound terrible. Everything you just said sounds terrible and completely non-pastoral and just like the church just trying to be a jerk on purpose. Like, nah, you're not good enough. Like that's exactly what the church sounds like.
That's what it sounds like.
Church typically doesn't sound like that. Church typically sounds like loving. And like, even when you've made a mistake, it's like, you know what? We can forgive you for your mistakes, but your marriage is fake and everything you've ever done is fake. That's what that sounds like. But the thing that I've heard most often for a convalidation is your marriage was valid, but not sacramental. That's what I've heard in the past. Like your marriage was valid, but not sacramental. Is that just BS? That's what I've heard and understood this whole time.
Yeah, no. I mean, because I can't imagine a scenario that would be the description that makes sense. Because if you were
primarily in like other Christian denominations, like we acknowledge that their marriage was still marriage, it just wasn't a sacrament.
Well, so if two Protestants get married, then we consider their marriage a sacrament. They don't need a validation. They're married. They're sacramentally married. Like two Lutherans get married. Heck, a Lutheran and a Presbyterian get married.
That would never happen.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But if it were to happen, we would consider that as sacramental marriage, even if they don't consider it a sacramental marriage.
Okay.
So they would not need to get their thing marriage. The validation is usually there's a Catholic involved.
Okay, that's what the scenario that I'm in is that it's a Catholic who hadn't been a practicing Catholic for years but was baptized and got first communion.
Yes, exactly.
Confirmed. So
that's normally what happens. Yeah.
At Easter, she's getting confirmed. The husband is getting the sacramental grand slam. He is getting all three, and his marriage is going to be, sacramentalized, validated at that point. Like, awesome.
I know.
4 sacraments.
I have to do the same thing.
Hours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So cool. Okay, so that. So two Protestants again. We considered it sacramental the day they got married in the Presbyterian Church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
They may not consider it. They may not consider it sacramental, but we do.
Okay. So two Protestants coming together to become Catholic. You don't have to do anything special for their marriage.
Nothing for their marriage. Nope. They just need to be accepted into the church. Probably get confirmed. Go to confession.
Why are we do this with literally everything? And like, why are we so mean to former Catholics when we're so lenient with literally everyone else? We are so lenient, and I know the answer that's probably going to be said is they know better. I promise you they didn't know better because they were children when they left. Like, if you leave when you're 25, like, you had at least the opportunity to learn what the church teaches. If you're a child and your parents stop bringing you, it's not your fault, man. Like, why are we so mean to former Catholics where other yours was a sacrament. You're fine. Come on in. You, born Catholic? Screw you.
Definitely understand that sentiment. And you are correct in the sense that in many scenarios, it is not the person's fault because they were not taught. That's definitely a real life thing. Okay. But the problem is that doesn't change the reality. The difficult thing about explaining this to people is that because you can't see spiritual reality, the temptation is to think that the spiritual reality doesn't exist. And so they're like, you're just making all this up. Where the church's concern is like, no, these spiritual things, which are invisible, are also the realest things in the world. So I'll explain by another really awkward thing that the church does. Maybe you experience this helping out in RCIA, where I am this Saturday going to do 2 conditional baptisms. It's the weirdest thing I do as a priest. It's the person claims to be baptized in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, but we have no proof of it. So the reality is either they were baptized and their soul was completely changed and they became adopted children of God, or that did not happen. One of those two things is the reality. We cannot know which one is the reality. So what we do is conditional baptism. And I say, and because you can only be baptized once, you cannot be rebaptized. That's the reality. I say, if you have not been baptized, I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So did I baptize that person? Literally only God knows. If you want to think about how silly it is, like, are these people you chose to bring to your conditional baptism, are they your godparents? Only God knows. It is Schrodinger's sacrament. We won't know until the end of time. But now we know for sure it did happen. Either when you claimed it happened or right then. I love
you're getting your stats in heaven. And you're like, I thought I did 950 baptisms. I actually did 1,004.
Yeah, who knows? I'll find out when I go to heaven. I'll get the official stat sheet. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow. I thought I was a league leader, but actually I was the league leader.
Right. So you can see how, like, that's a weird situation. It's an awkward situation, but it's because the church believes so firmly that spiritual realities are realities, even if you can't see them. And it's our job to take that seriously. Okay. If you are Catholic, then you have been grafted onto the body of Christ. You are a part of this thing called the church, which is a deep spiritual reality. You have obligations and you also get privileges from the church. When you remove yourself from the communion of the church, then you have removed yourself from the church. That is a spiritual reality. Now, there's also tragedy involved in this. You were removed, or you removed yourself out of ignorance, right? That's the thing that happens. So the reality is that there is a breaking, there is a wounding there, but it's not your fault. Okay, but there's still a wound there. It's still been broken there. It just has. It sucks.
I hate when the church literally verbatim words out of their mouth sound exactly like the Pharisees in the Gospels. Like the Pharisees.
How does that sound like a Pharisee?
Were like the sins of the father, obviously those passed down to the son. So the sins of the father that took their 7-year-old out of the Catholic Church after they got baptized, and now we're punishing the son for the sins of the parents that brought them out.
No,
now the son comes over.
No.
And we're like, you have to jump through hoops to get married here.
No. This is the difference. The difference is not that we're punishing the son for the father's sins, is that the father wounded you. And now this is the process of healing.
So now the church has to wound you as well.
No, it's that the process of healing, the process of fixing what is wrong often hurts. Getting stitches often hurts. Going through medical procedures often hurts. Going to your chiropractor often hurts. That's what's going on. And it can feel like, and I totally, like I said, I deal with this all the time, so I understand it. There are good ways to do that, and bad ways to do that. There are good doctors and bad doctors. There's good bedside manner and bad bedside manner, right? But I am not punishing you, and the church is not punishing you for what your father did, or your mom did, or what society did. Society or your mom or your dad hurt you. And we all know that that's a real thing that happens in real life, and it's a tragedy. And the healing of that, the fixing of that is also a painful process. It absolutely is. And if you go through it without faith, it's going to be even more painful, right? If you're not doing this, if you're doing this just to get things right with the church and you don't have a deep faith in what the church teaches, it's going to be even more difficult and you're probably not even going to do it, right? So like, I'm not saying like it's easy. I'm not saying that it doesn't feel like the way you're describing it, but it definitely isn't the way you're describing it. That's not the reality. That is a deep, the feeling itself is a reality. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to brush this off, but I'm not going to accept the fact that the church is just being a jerk. No, this is sin. Sin has been a jerk. The sin of your parents does affect you. It's not your sin, but it has affected you. And there's only one way to heal it, and that's to go through this process. It's not your fault that you've been living with somebody that you're not married to, but you have been. And that had a reality. That's a reality to it. And you want that to be healed? This is how we do it. If there was an easier way to do it, we would. But that's just like sometimes you just gotta stitch up the wound. You just have to clean it out. You just have to do the surgery, and that can be painful and sucks. That's why it's so important. This is why when like some grandma wants their grandchild to be baptized, but the parents don't want anything to do with it, I don't baptize that child because I'm not gonna give them the obligations of being Catholic when there's no chance of them fulfilling it. This is why all this stuff is important. Yeah, things are really twisted and really broken. The church didn't twist it. The church didn't break it. The world did, or your parents did, or sin did. But it's not the church who did this to you. It's just not. It's not.
That might be the most Father Anthony Sciarappa defender of the church I've ever seen out of you. That was incredible. That was very, very good. Yeah. You're very good at this. I think not only have you gotten my anger down about this, you've equipped me with how to share this with this couple or any couple. It's the surgery and the post-op of the surgery. I deal with this with my track kids all the time. It's like, hey, it's time to use the massage gun. I don't want to. It hurts. Yeah, you dummy. It'll make you feel better in 2 days. Like that. It's gonna hurt because the pain's already there. That sort of thing. So that fine. You didn't change my mind about the mass thing. I still think we should all be going to community services. But you did change my mind about this. Thank you. You win.
Okay.
It's 1-1.
That's better than I get most episodes. So I'm feeling good. I needed that 2-month break to get one win in there finally.
Dude, you are back. Like you, I was like, okay, fine.
Well, this is the thing, because like I don't often get to speak this clearly to people about it. Because, when I'm actually talking with the person in front of me who's going through this, it's very difficult to communicate, or they're not willing to listen, or they're not willing to open up to the reality that they're pissed off to me. Like, it's so complicated and so tricky that I often don't get to speak to the reality of what's going on in such a clear manner. And it frustrates me because a lot of times, on a personal level, I've done nothing wrong. I'm doing my best to help this person or this couple. And all they see when they look at me is this
a man body
jerk who's making life difficult for them. I'm just a jerk. Like, no. Right. The opposite. First of all, I am innocent in this and maybe only this thing in my life. Right. And so I am trying so hard. And now I just have to accept your slings and arrows and all your judgments of me when all I'm trying to do is heal you, So I do get fired up about this.
Well, I'm glad that I gave this was all for me, and I'm glad I gave you a chance to get fired up about it because it's all the stuff you've been holding back in those meetings.
Yeah. Good for you. I'm not the asshole here. I'm sorry your dad was an asshole. It happens, okay? I'm sorry. Your priest, maybe your priest was an asshole. That's why you didn't get married in the church. That sucks. He's an asshole. He's going to hell for that. But we still are stuck in this situation, and I wasn't that priest, okay? I'm not the church, even though I represent it. It's just not fair sometimes. Okay, sorry.
I want everybody to know that's just listening on the podcast. First of all, hey kids, how are you? Second of all, he's talking with his hands. It's the most Italian he's ever been. He's worked out. This is very, very fun. Okay, now my actual question about convalidation.
Okay.
Because you've done this process and I haven't. I've only done the marriage prep process twice. 3 times, I guess. No, I was going to say for mine, but we didn't really do anything. So what's different about the process of preparation for convalidation? What's different for me? What should I be doing differently than I did with the 2 little baby marriage kids?
Right. So for convalidation, at least in my diocese, you're still supposed to go through some sort of marriage prep. A lot of times that feels silly because a lot of marriage prep is about finances and communication and all the practical human things. After 14 years, I can't give you much advice on that. What I can do, and because I don't send them away to a whole marriage prep class with a bunch of little babies who are getting married, I meet with them a few times and say, hey, let's talk about the Catholic things. Let's talk about, hey, what's it, it may be difficult bringing your family to Mass. How do we deal with that? How do you get more involved in the church? When should you guys go to confession? So I can talk to them about the Catholic stuff and how the Catholic stuff will change their marriage. So I usually meet with them a few times and then I write a piece of paper saying I have prepared them for the sacrament of marriage. So what they need is not so much the communication thing or finances or that stuff. They need I'm taking my Catholic faith more seriously. What does that look like in marriage? So that's what I would suggest for you guys. How does the Catholic reality change married life? And you're even though they may be married longer than you, you know more about that stuff than they do. So you can tell them that stuff.
Cool. That's what I was planning. So that's what I will do.
Yeah. Okay.
Last little thing. We'll end with this. We'll end with a little easy, fun thing since we're both sweating. This is a tertiary point or secondary point to just to prove that I may be the problem in my argument for the not having to sit through the full Mass.
Yeah.
I got the biggest mirror into how much I have changed in one specific area. And I'm going to do that by sharing a story with you. But my first question to you is pre-teenager or maybe before you were 15 years old, best video game you ever played before 15, your childhood video game. What was your favorite game? Before we got into these big 150-hour RPGs, the childhood game. Nice, simple, easy. What's your favorite childhood video game?
Can I give 2?
No. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you could give 2.
Okay. Because I'm not sure if I was 15, but I'm thinking the 2 things that popped in my mind immediately is me and my 3 buddies playing on one screen. That was GoldenEye and then Halo. We played the heck out of those games. It'd be that's what we would do as friends, as bros, get together and play those multiplayer shooter games. For sure, that's the one that jumped into my mind the first.
Okay, perfectly fine answer. I want to go younger. Let's go before 12 or 10.
Original Zelda for the NES.
Okay, there we go.
I remember waking up early in the morning on Saturday so I could play that game. Yeah.
Okay. Because I realized after you said those things, like that's what I was doing at that age too, and that's too old. So, because I don't, well, actually, I know exactly how old I was when this game came out because it literally has the name on it. Backyard Baseball 1997. Greatest video game of my childhood.
That's a computer game, right?
Yeah, computer
Was it a
game.
computer game? Yeah, with like Pedro and like the little. Yes, those are great games. Pablo, yes, yes.
Pablo Sanchez, Pete Wheeler, Kenny Kawaguchi. We're having a blast. There's also lady ones. I'm going to throw that out because I don't remember them, and you called him Pedro. So
it's a long time ago. It's not a race thing. It's an age thing.
1-1 again. Okay. So
yeah,
this game has been rumored for a couple of years to be coming back. Actually, Jason Kelsey, the Super Bowl winning center, one of the best centers of all time, played for the Eagles.
Yeah,
he was a big proponent and like I think bought stake in it and was a big guy promoting this thing. Right. It finally came out on computers a while ago. I don't play computer games anymore. I play on console, but it finally came out for iOS for phones and iPads. It came out last Thursday, so 2 Thursdays ago as you're listening to this.
Yeah.
So it's been out for about 2 weeks. I've been playing it like crazy. And it is driving me insane. It's driving me mental because it is the slowest gameplay I've ever felt in my entire life. Have they changed anything? No. They haven't changed a single thing. It is the same exact game that came out in 1997. I was 7 or 8 years old. I thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened. All I have are positive memories. It's the best game ever. One season in that game, I hit 1 with Pedro, Pablo. Yeah. I hit 1, meaning like 1.000. Typically batting averages are the 0.000 whatever. like, you know, so the best hitters of all time hit .333. 33% of the time they're getting on base. I hit 1.000 with Pablo in a whole season. I have so many positive memories of this game. I'm playing on the iPad now. Between every pitch is a 20-second delay for some reason. You take a hit. You get a hit, the ball goes out into the outfield, they throw it to the second baseman. The second baseman holds the ball for 15 seconds before it goes to the next batter. It is unbelievably slowly painful, and I used to love it, and now I have no patience whatsoever. This great thing that I used to love is genuinely terrible now because I have changed. It's the most time capsule thing of all time. Literally nothing about the game has changed. It used to be the greatest thing in the world. Now it freaking sucks. And it's the biggest mirror to me of like, you are so freaking impatient. It's unbelievable. The world's changed, man, and I've changed with it.
So maybe Mass isn't boring. Maybe the problem is you. Is that what the story's about?
I think so. I just wanted to throw you that bone so that you could win 3-2. But
who knows?
You're still
it's
racist,
possible.
So, you know.
Yeah. What are you gonna
do? That's very, very good. So, anyway, just thought I'd end with that fun little story there. Well, I'll be back hopefully next week. Happy Holy Week to everybody. This is it. This is your Holy Week episode. This is what everybody expected from the Forte Catholic Holy Week episode. We didn't talk about it at all. So hope that you enjoy it. Your Holy Thursday, your Good Friday, your Holy Saturday, which if you really want to, you could go to 3.5 hour long Mass. And while you're there, you can think about the priest that is driving 7 hours to do 4 different 3.5 hour long Masses. God bless. I'll see you next week. Father Anthony will be back in a month. See ya. Thank you for watching or listening today. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening. Share it with a friend. You know, it's Easter time. People are ready to, do something holy. Send them this episode. It has the word Catholic in it. That should help. And also if you want to support the work that we're doing, you can do so over at fortecatholic.com/donate. We've had a few new people join our monthly donation team, and I really, really do appreciate it. It really helps us to continue doing the work that we are doing and not have to stress about money all the time. Continue to make great content for you. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.